I've never seen a society go completely off the rails when the government decides to start fixing prices. That always works out really, really well, and when nobody's incentivized, because incentives are bad, and those greedy... I can't even get through this. Kamala Harris is trying to fix prices on things as minuscule as groceries. Kamala Harris is set to give her big economic speech in which she unveils at least one small, very tiny component of her platform, which, by the way, nobody has seen. It's been 20-something days since she's been the de facto Democratic nominee for president, and still no policy page on her website. But she did release what she is going to say at her big economic speech. And in that statement, it says this: they are going to establish the Harris-Walz administration, the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries, setting clear rules of the road to make clear that big corporations can't unfairly exploit customers to run up excessive corporate profits on food and groceries. Okay. Here's the thing. The free market is a beautiful thing. And the fact that we have to continue to defend the thing that has brought billions of people out of poverty and into the modern age is frightening to me. Now, we can go into the argument over whether or not the free market is a good thing or a bad thing, even though I feel like that has to be settled at this point. Like, the free market clearly is better than government fixed prices, but I think the main thing, well, I don't know what approach you're supposed to take to this. You can take the big umbrella blanket approach of just the free market is better. It incentivizes good things and it disincentivizes bad things. And by good things, I mean what the people want, and bad things, I mean what the people don't want in terms of commodities or products or services. Whatever the free market dictates somebody needs will set the price based on how much of it there is and what people are willing to pay for. This is very simple economics. If the government is involved on a granular level, well, they don't have prices to let them know what people want versus what they don't want, versus what manufacturers make versus what they don't make. What ends up happening when government starts fixing prices is you have a huge supply of things that there's no demand for, and no supply of things that there is demand for, because the price is what is used to let people know, to let customers and manufacturers and retailers know what people actually want. And if you don't have those things, if you don't have those signifiers, that is price, the market won't know what to make. And if the market doesn't know what to make, well, you're going to end up screwing yourself in the long term. The other thing that I think I have a big problem with, and this is a paragraph from Liz Wolfe of Reason Magazine. She says this, and I was thinking the same exact thing. It's not clear how an excessive profit would be defined, nor why policing that would be in the purview of the federal government, nor why food prices in particular ought to qualify. It's not clear what types of behaviors that are currently legal would be outlawed. That is, I think, the biggest thing. So we can argue on a big blanket term, like, yeah, the free market is an indicator of what people want and need versus what suppliers should make. But on a government level, first of all, good point. We seem to gloss over this. I seem to gloss over this a lot. What the heck? Whose business is it for the government to insert themselves into the grocery store? Like, outside of, like, I don't know, the FDA and making sure your milk doesn't come to your store with bacteria in it, even though I think the free market would probably figure that out pretty quickly anyway, especially with all the information floating around. Aside from that, on a price level, what the heck is the federal government thinking they're going to do that's better than the free market deciding what people are willing to pay for a product that they either want or don't? But to the point that Liz is making here, what is excessive profits? What is too much profit? Who gets to decide that? Who gets to regulate that? What is legal now that will be outlawed in the future? And not to mention, too, where does the money come from For Americans in their retirement, their investments, their 401ks, I know, which is all kind of a different way of saying the same exact thing. But I think the crazy thing is excessive profits. Okay, well, so if you crack down on excessive profits, let's just say you're able to define what excessive profit means. If you crack down on that, what's going to happen to the people who have their retirements, their investments, their sustainability wrapped up in companies that are no longer allowed to make the profit that they were expecting to be able to make? I think there's so many different components here. The actual supply chain itself, not knowing what it needs to supply, all the way to if somebody has their 401k wrapped up in, I don't know, Kroger futures. I don't even know if that's a thing, but some big grocery outlet chain. And then all of a sudden the government decides, hey, you can only charge this much for this product, and goes through the entire store and sets prices. Well, two things are going to happen. Like we said, one, suppliers aren't going to know what to make. And two, the store is going to just kind of crash, right? Because lines of credits are based off of your books and the profits that you make. The margins that you make are indicative of how well your company is doing, and any sort of how the stock in your company is doing, how the investors are doing, how the dividends are doing. There's so much involved there at that end that is now out of the control of the business person who knows how to do it best, and now in the control of the government, who historically has made everything worse. And then the stock and the investments crash, which cause another big problem, especially for people who have put their hard-earned money and retirement plan in something that is now demanded by the government, now controlled entirely by the government. This is one of those things where, geez, now that I'm thinking about it, as I'm continue to ramble about it, this is the problem. This is the problem with conservatism. Everything makes sense logically speaking, from a policy standpoint, from a free market standpoint. But if you're explaining, you're losing in politics. And unfortunately, too many people aren't paying any attention whatsoever. And so a lot of us doing the explaining have already lost interest. Most people are probably not listening to this anymore because of what I think is a pretty surface level nuanced conversation, but that's more than a lot of people want to hear. So you know what? If she can get away with this sort of thing and people don't question it and people think it's a good thing, and price gouging. We did a video a while ago about me defending price gouging. I think it's a good thing. It incentivizes people to flood the area that has demand with supply and therefore lowers the prices. But we won't get into that necessarily here. But maybe in the somewhat rambling of trying to explain the free market to a dunce like Kamala Harris, maybe that's the reason why it's so difficult. If you're explaining, you're losing. That is an age-old saying in politics, and if she can get away with this and ends up getting away with this, I don't know. Maybe we all just move to homesteads in an undisclosed states. I was going to say Montana, but I don't want Montanans to get mad at me for increasing their property taxes even more. So, well, that's enough of that. Kamala Harris making her economic platform as communistic as it gets.